All right, in class we left off talking about hemispheric lateralization, left and right lobes, and what they do. This is just a review of those things. Remember, we associate left side of our brain with logic and the right side of our brain with creativity, although both work together at all times. Memory is an interesting topic because scientists don't really understand exactly how memory works. We define it as our ability to recall thoughts and our ability to retrieve information that's stored in our mind, but how do we store thoughts in the form of chemicals and cells? It's all kind of very interesting. As far as what parts of the brain are involved, we're definitely going to have all of the cortex areas, all four lobes. And also, our big one here is the limbic system. We talked about this before, but the greater the emotional aspect of an experience, the more likely we're going to put it into memory. Also, our diencephalon, which that's our thalamus and hypothalamus, and pineal gland, but not so much that is going to be involved in memory. Now, in order for a thought to actually become part of your memory, there must be a physical change in the nervous system. What do I mean by a change? I mean that there must be a new connection formed between neurons in order for you to remember something and recall it. We are really good at short-term memory. In fact, after this, after we're done with this unit, you may not even remember what the limbic system is because it takes a long time to get something into long-term memory. The more you frequently use it, the more you practice it, the better you're going to do at getting it into long-term memory, and the more permanent those changes to the nervous system are. We can recall a bunch of things in our short-term memory, but it's only going to last a few seconds, maybe a few hours, depending on how important that information is. You guys don't really have to deal with this, but back in the day, we used to have to remember phone numbers, and those got stored in long-term memory. In fact, I still remember my best friend's phone number from high school. Because we don't have to do that anymore, we don't make those connections, and in fact, some people don't even really know their best friend's phone numbers because it's stored in their phone. So check out this video clip of memory. Now we can measure brain activity through an electroencephalogram or an EEG. And what it's going to do is they'll put electrodes on the head. They don't have to put them into the brain. They put them on top of the head, and they're measuring signals of energy that are coming off of the brain. And there's 4 characteristic waves that you see. Alpha is your awake and resting waves. Beta are your mental activity waves. Theta is your emotional waves. And deltas are what you're going to experience in deep sleep. Interestingly enough, again, a great topic for an FOW or your extra credit FOW is the difference in these waves during your development, because babies and children operate in a different area of brainwave activity than adolescents and adults do. So what an EEG does is it measures essentially those action potentials as they come off of the cerebral cortex. In class, we talked about the fact that energy essentially goes through our body, and we kind of talked about the fact that it exudes out of our body as well. Well, that's exactly what they're doing when they measure these waves. Why would you need an EEG? The main reason you would use it is to diagnose something. You don't just go into the doctor and say, hey, I'm due for my EEG today. When it's a heart issue, they'll do an EKG. Don't confuse a heart with the brain one. Okay, EEG is not the same as an EKG. So the main thing that you're doing here, like I said, is to diagnose a disorder, particularly sleep disorder, epilepsy. I had an incident where I passed out and I had some seizures, and I had an EEG done to see if I was going to be epileptic, which is a type of seizure disorder. So it's kind of funky, and this isn't a great picture. I'm sure there's lots of cool ones out there, but this is a lot of electrodes, but in most cases you won't have this many electrodes on the brain. And they just put a bunch on your brain and they're measuring the activity. And these are just some of the things that could show from an EEG a disorder. So lots of things. Interestingly enough, though, if you have an EEG, if they're testing you for a seizure, it doesn't mean, like in my case, this is actually true for me. I had a normal EEG, but I still had a seizure prior to it. So lots of different things that they might be checking for here.